Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new up in this place, my name is Ntwani Ngomani, and if you're a returning subscriber, thank you so much for clicking back on this video. Today we are finishing up part 3 of the APC series, where we talk about the information on the day, what to expect, and how to go on about answering the actual required. You will forgive me guys, there is a few background noises. I am at home, so there are kids playing around everywhere and there are cars moving everywhere. It's chaotic, but it is what it is, and I just wanted to finish this series for you guys, especially for the guys that will be writing their first assessment, I think this June or so. Hopefully you haven't written it as yet, and I hope you find this video helpful. So the first thing first is that time management is very important. On the day, you do not have time to be lazing around and trying to think of something. You need to have planned everything, right? You have 8 hours to do this exam. Normally you would get about 8 to 9 tasks. The most I've seen is 9 tasks. So if you have 8 hours with 9 tasks, then you have about 53 minutes to get through each question or to get through each task, right? There will normally be longer questions and shorter questions. Normally, from what I've seen with the APC and past papers, is that the first 3 to 4 questions are normally the longest, and then the rest of the paper is normally like short to medium sized questions. So you can spend at least an hour to an hour 30 minutes for the first 2 or 3 questions. Obviously that will depend on how fast you are with your writing and how well you know the material that you've prepared during your research phase. But yeah, from my experience, I've seen that the first 2 to 3 questions are usually the longest. The last few questions are normally the shortest, and they don't really rank much higher than the rest, because they understand that candidates, by that time it's probably 4 p.m. and candidates are tired, and you know, a lot has been going on through the day, so they try to make those as short as possible and as easier as possible. So those are the questions where you can try to score an HC rating. The next thing is that I have made some notes from my last year final prep actually, and I want to read these out to you because I think these help me notice a lot of the things that I was missing throughout the year. So I want you guys to grab these things right from the beginning, and you go with them right to the final exam, right? So the first thing is answering all the aspects of the required. Now the required will come in probably an email or a letter from the CFO or the audit committee or whoever it is. Now it is your responsibility to read the information on the day. I would suggest that you read everything firsthand. When you get the info, just read. Spend the first hour trying to read and understand what happened between the pre-release information and what has happened now on the information on the day. So my first point here is that if an amount on the day is quoted excluding VAT, you need to discuss the VAT. They are then telling you that they have excluded VAT in that amount, but then you as a candidate need to show that you are a multidisciplinary thinking person, and you need to then come in and discuss the VAT, right? Always read carefully to identify these amounts that include or exclude VAT, and always try to do that discussion or to bring up that discussion in your answer, or of what the company should do with the VAT. If an amount is including VAT, what should they do? Can they claim VAT input? If an amount is excluding VAT, why should it exclude VAT, and what is the treatment there? Next thing is, if you say something has been incorrectly treated, so if you read the info on the day and you are of the opinion that something is incorrectly treated, you need to tell us why you think it is, and you need to back that up with either IFRS, you need to back that up with the Auditing Standards, Companies Act, whatever it is. If you think something is wrong or it's incorrectly done, you need to bring facts, you need to bring standards into the picture to say, this is why I think this is done, this is wrong. And you also need to suggest what the right treatment is. You can't just point out something that's wrong and not give a solution. You need to be solution driven. Okay, third thing, always think critically about the way management treats certain things. And I fell for this so many times. You know, when you're reading your information and they tell you that we have treated this, or say for instance they had a rental agreement, and they decided, you know what, we're going to keep this as an operating lease instead of having it as a finance lease or capitalizing it to be a finance lease. And you don't need to always take what management is saying. You need to do an assessment for yourself that, is it correct treating this thing as an operating lease? Should it not be capitalized into an IFRS, into a finance lease rather? Because you might find that they actually meet the requirements for it to be capitalized for a right of use asset and a lease liability, but they're incorrectly classifying it. So just because they say that they're doing something doesn't mean it's always right. And the next thing is to number all the aspects of the required. This thing has happened a lot of times where you read the required and there's so many things that they want, but you can't remember all of them when you're now writing the answer. So it's a good idea to always number. When they say we are unsure about, number that 1, and there's a VAT treatment, number that 2. If there's a tax something, number that 3. You need to number all the aspects of the required so you make sure that you answer each and everything. APC is about answering everything. If you skip some things, you automatically then are graded down, right? The use of expectation tables. So expectation tables have been taught to us in the APT board course. I don't know what they call them if you're doing the UCT one, but I'd imagine they have something like that. So basically an expectation table is when you're reading the required and you're reading what the CFO has sent to you to discuss, you sort of need to come up with expectations of what they want to see in the answer. And that's where the whole expectation table comes in. So the expectation table has 3 aspects. It has the audience. Who are you answering or writing that answer to? Who is the person that is expected to receive it? The technical is basically the IFRS, the ISA, the Companies Act, the Audit Profession Act, you know, the technical stuff. And then context is basically what is the context behind it, what had happened before that triggered this thing, and how did this thing come about. So in your expectation tables, you need to address these 3 things. You need to address the audience, speak at a level of language that your audience can understand, and you need to distinguish this. If you're speaking to a CFO, someone who's very knowledgeable about IFRS, there's no need for you to go in depth and try to explain IFRS 16 or try to explain the capitalization of a lease, because this person is already knowledgeable in IFRS 16. But if you're speaking to a technical team that comprises maybe your COO, your technical guys on the ground, your junior accountants, or you know, someone who does not have the technical knowledge, then you need to go in depth to speak about IFRS, to say why should we do it this way, this is correct because IFRS says this and this and this and that. Then your audience is very important, because if you're going to spend time trying to explain IFRS to a CFO who's already knowledgeable about this thing, it grades you down, because you're literally wasting time trying to explain something that they already know. So that's the audience part of it. The technical part of it, I've already mentioned, is your IFRS and your ISIS, and the context is basically the background and trying to say, how did this change from the pre-release information to the information on the day. In numbering, actually, you're required into the different aspects. There are certain things that are very subtle that you must address that are in the required. I'll give you an example. So when you're reading the information on the day and the person who's writing to you, you can see that there are things that they are not sure about. Though that is one of the things you need to discuss in your answer. If there's something that they say, actually we're not very sure about this, or you can see in the tone and in the way they're saying it that they're actually not sure, address it in your answer. That is actually a point. Another thing is errors that they make on the way they're communicating to you. I was actually reading with the APC 2020. There's a part where they say SICA is a law. And we all know that SICA is not a law. SICA is an institution. So that's where you need to come in and say, actually, my CFO, I have noted that you refer to SICA as a law. It is actually not a law, but it is an institution that governs chartered accountants in South Africa. So that's where you get aspects of the required. You know, the required is not just point blank discuss IFRS 16 requirements. Sometimes it's subtle things like errors that they make, like things they're not very sure of, like incorrectly referring to something I've seen also where they refer to the Companies Act, where in actual fact that piece of information was in the King 4 report. So it's those type of things that you need to correct them, and it's those type of things that make up the bulk of your response, right? The other thing is misinterpretation of certain information. So when the person writing to you misinterprets, like I said, with this Companies Act issue, where they referred to the Companies Act while actually that piece of information was found in King, that's where you need to come in and correct them, identifying basically the overall context of the required. Try to always link what happened in the pre-release with what happened on the day. Try and look at how things have changed, how things have evolved, because 5 days is a long time, especially if you're dealing with a listed company. A lot can happen in 5 days. Even with unlisted companies, a lot happens in 5 days. So you need to come in with an understanding of what happened on the pre-release and what has happened now. So basically these are the points that I wanted to discuss with you guys. On the more softer skill plane is that everyone is going through the same thing. Okay, you're all worried, you're all anxious, you're all, yeah, like everyone is going through the most on that day, but your ability to stay calm, your ability to control your emotions, your ability to say, you know what, I have 53 minutes, let me type this thing and really focus just for this question, is really what's gonna set you apart. I don't know, but for me, I walked out of that exam feeling it in my gut, feeling it in my stomach that I have passed this thing, and it's because of the way that I wrote it. Listen, after the exam, people were talking, and I could identify things that I actually didn't think about, which were correct, which I should have identified, but I wasn't very worried about it because I had a strategy, I had a plan, and I got in there and I implemented the plan. So always try to plan, guys. Like, plan your required, not required, plan your answers. Try to plan the way you're gonna answer this thing. Try to plan your time is very important, guys. APC, if you do not finish, if you do not answer all the tasks, it's an automatic fail, unfortunately. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I didn't want to make it so long because it's quite technical, and it really speaks to the people who are doing this APC thing. If you're really not into this, this video wouldn't really be helpful for you. But yeah, those were my tips and things that I had written out from my first and final attempt of APC last year. I hope you found this useful, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.